وبه قال حدثنا محمد بن علاء قال حدثنا حفص يعني بن غياث الأعمش عن أبي إسحاق عن عبد الخير عن علي قال كان الدين بالرأي لكان أسبق بالأولى بالمسجد من أعلاه ورأيت رسول الله يمسح ولا ضائر كفيه. We need to study. No? Narrated from.
We finish the Dawood and the Muhammad of the Rasul.
We finish Muhammad. We finish Muhammad in your office. Okay. And
we finish around Dawood.
You finish that one. Okay, the next one. كل حدثنا محمد بن عمرو كل حدثنا يحيى بن علي كل حدثنا يزيد بن عبد العزيز عن الأعمش بإسناده بهذا الحديث قال ما كنت أرى باطن القدمين إلا حق بالغسل حتى رأيت الرسول يمسح على ظهر كفيه. Now from Amash with the same sanad with the same hadith. He says, I did not see the inside of the feet, the bottom of the feet, except that is more rightful to wash until I saw Nabi Akbar making masa on the top of the hoofs. So what he's saying here is that the bottom of the feet should be more rightful to wash it because of his dead it's getting dirty, right? But when I saw Nabi Akbar making masa on the top of the hoof, I now realize that just as it's important to wash the bottom of the feet when washing the feet, it's also important to wash the top of the feet. وبقول حدثنا محمد بن الله قال حدثنا حفص بن غياث عن الأعمش بهذا الحديث قال لو كان الدين بالرأي لكان باطل القدمين أحق بالمسح من ظاهرهما وقد مسح النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم على ظهر خفيه. Right. ورواه وكيع عن الأعمش بإسناده قال كنت أرى أن باطن القدمين أحق بالمسح من ظاهرهما حتى رأيت الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم يمسح على ظاهرهما. قال وكيع يعني الخفين. ورواه عيسى بن يونس عن الأعمش كما روى وكيع ورواه أبو السوداء عن ابن عبد خير عن أبيه قال رأيت عليا تودى فغسل ظاهر قدميه وقال لولا أنت رأيت الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم يفعله وساق الحديث. Right. But the same hadith, he said, if the deen was what right, what your opinion, then the inside of the feet would be more rightful to make masah than the outside of the feet. And indeed, Nabi Akram made masah upon the top of the khus. And Waqi narrates from Amash with the same sanad, right? And he said, I used to see that the inside of the feet is more rightful with masah than the outside until I saw Nabi Akram making masah on the top of the khuf. And Waqi says the meaning the khufain, right? And Isa ibn Yunus narrates from Amash just as Waqi had narrated it. And Abu Sauda also narrated from Ibn Abdi Khair from his father. I saw Ali radiallahu making wuzu and he washed the top of his feet and he said if it was not that I saw Nabi doing this and he continued the same hadith. Right. So what does this mean now? There's two possibilities here. That when you're saying that the inside of the feet is more rightful with washing, you rather mean masah, right? And then the meaning is quite clear. That the inside of the feet, I would thought that would be more rightful to make masah. But when I saw Nabi Akram make masah the top of the hoofs, you understand? So you're taking the inside of the feet with masah, and the feet you're taking to mean hoofs, right? And the other is you take it on its external meaning, right? That you mean that the washing of the inside of the feet is more, and here you're going to take the meaning of washing, right? So the washing of the inside of the feet, I thought that is more rightful, but in reality, the washing of the top of the feet is just as important. Understand it? Right. Nevertheless, what we understand from this is that, according to Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu, a statement here that deen is not the laws of the Sharia is not based on our akal, right, and our logic, right. But this doesn't mean that the laws of the Sharia is contrary to logic, right. Rather, What they say is that the laws of the Sharia, those that we don't understand, the ulama mentioned, it's غير مدرك بالرأي, right? In other words, it's beyond our comprehension. It's beyond our comprehension. But that doesn't mean that it is khilafi akal. Doesn't mean that it is contrary to logic or it doesn't make sense. You understand it? Rather, it is beyond our understanding. That's what the ulama mentioned. Right. وبيقول حدثنا موسى بن هارون ومحمود بن خالد الدمشقي والمعنى قال حدثنا لي قال محمود قال أخبرنا ثور بن يزيد عن رجاء بن حيوة عن كاتب المغيرة بن شعبة عن المغيرة بن شعبة قال وضعت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في غزوة تبوك فمسح على الخفين وأسفلهما قال أبو داود وبلغني أنه لم يسمع ثور هذا الحديث من رجاء. Right. Right. So they narrate this hadith here from the scribe of Mughira bin Shuba from Mughira bin Shuba. And he said, I made wuzu for Nabi Sallallahu in the battle of Tabuk. In other words, I helped him make wuzu. Then he made masa upon the khuf, right? And the bottom of the khufs. Right? Imam Buddha said, it has reached me that Saur did not hear this hadith from Raja. You see where Saur, they Akhbarna Saur. Saur ibn Yazid and Raja ibn Haywa. So he said this in Kitani. Right. So this hadith here is corresponding to what Imam Shafi and Imam Malik says, that it's sunnah to make, as far as to make the top masa, and it's sunnah to make the bottom of the foot masa. And according to Imam Buddha, by saying this here, and he's saying that this hadith is munkati' because Saud didn't hear from Raja bin Haywa, right? And Imam Bayhaqi rahmatullah, he found another fault in this hadith. Is that some narrators have narrated this hadith mursalan from the scribe of Mughira bin Shu'bah. And therefore we find Imam Tirmizi has narrated the hadith an Saur an Raja قال حدثت عن كاتب المغيرة عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. You understand? So he must out the rawi there. You understand it? Rather he must out the Mughira bin Shu'bah. Min katib al-Mughira عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. So Mughira bin Shu'bah is missing there. You understand? And then another fault they found in this hadith is that the Katibul Mughira, the scribe of Mughira, is unknown. However, in Ibn Majah, they mention who he is there, and Warrad Katibul Mughira. Since Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi, right, he said it's sunnah to make masa on the bottom. He said this hadith, even though it is weak, right, but when it comes to virtue, then you can make amal on a weak hadith. And therefore, he say it is sunnah to make masa at the bottom. Our answer is this here, that to make amal on a weak hadith in fadail, it is correct at that time when that hadith doesn't oppose a sahih hadith or hasan hadith. You got it? When it doesn't oppose a sahih hadith or hasan hadith. And then the ulama have also mentioned that to make amal on a hadith, za'if hadith, right? They have mentioned that it shouldn't be extremely weak or mawzu, right? And what's the meaning of a extremely weak? Is that in the chain of narrators, there's a narrator there who is accused of lies, or he makes many mistakes, or he's matruk, he's left out, right? So basically, if the rawi has got these qualities, and that makes the hadith extremely weak. Babun fil intidahi. Right. The chapter in intidah. What is intidah? According to Jamhur, intidah means to sprinkle the private parts with water. after wuzu, right? Then the other meaning they've got there is istinja with water. That's also the meaning here. Then the third meaning they got there is to pour water on the lumps, right? And the fourth meaning, at the time of making istinja with water, to drop some drops on the private parts so that the urine drops can all come out, right? And all these meanings are more or less covered in the hadith. You understand? And the hadiths explain it like this, right? That one hadith says that when you finish uh, wuzu, then sprinkle some water on your clothes, right? And the other hadith explains that before you make wuzu, then make istinja with water. And the other hadith explains that when you make wuzu, then wash your lumps properly and don't just wipe it. Don't just make a masah, right? Right, let's do the. وبه قال حدثنا محمد بن كثير قال أخبرنا سفيان عن منصور المجاهد عن سفيان بن الحكم الثقفي والحكم بن سفيان الثقفي والحكم أو الحكم بن سفيان الثقفي قال كان الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا بال يتوضأ وينتضح. قال أبو داود وافق سفيان جماعة على هذا الإسناد وقال بعضهم الحكم أو ابن الحكم. Right. From Mujahid, from Sufyan ibn al-Hakam al-Saqafi or Hakam ibn Sufyan al-Saqafi. He said, so the narrator made, he's not sure here, right? He said, that Nabi Akram, when you pass urine, you make wuzu and you sprinkle water. Imam Buddha Ahmed says that a group has coincided with Sufyan and Sufyan ibn al-Hakam, right? Saqafi, right? Has coincided with, no, this is Sufyan Sawri. Akhbarana Sufyan, right? Sawri, right? As a group has coincided with, you saw that. Which Sufyan is it? There's two Sufyans in it, hadith there, but it's not Sufyan Saqafi. It's a Sufyan Sawri there. Wala akhbarana Sufyan, Sawri. Understand it? Right. So a group has coincided with Sufyan, and thus is a sanad. And some of them said Al-Hakam, and some says Ibn al-Hakam. You understand? And Sufyan ibn al-Hakam is Saqafi, or Hakam ibn Sufyan is Saqafi. Right. So some of them go like it. Right. So some of them say Hakam ibn Sufyan, and some are saying Ibn al-Hakam ibn Sufyan. Right. But we call حدثنا إسحاق. Let's see if we got anything here. Right. Right. Let's go to the next hadith. وفي قال حدثنا إسحاق بن إسماعيل قال حدثنا سفيان. This is Sufyan ibn Uyayna. عن ابن نجيح عن مجاهد عن رجل من ثقيف النبي قال رأيت رجل سنبال ثم نضح فرجه. Right. From a man from Thaqif, from his father, he said, so Nabi some passed urine, then he sprinkled his private parts. Right. Right. وبيقول حدثنا ناس بن مهاجر قال حدثنا معيط بن عمرو قال حدثنا زاهد بن منصور المجاهد عن الحكم او ابن الحكم النبي ان النبي سم قال ثم توضا ونزح فرجه. Right, from his father, Nabi Sam passed urine, then he made wudu, then he sprinkled his private part. Right. So some narrators, as we see in the Sanad, they have increased on the Sanad to say Anabihi, right? As we see there. And some did not mention an Abihi. So Musannif Rahman is saying that just as Sufyan didn't put an Abihi there, there's a group that also joined Sufyan by not putting an Abihi there, right? And then we said now, in the first Sanad there we mentioned it's Sufyan al-Sawri. And in the second Sanad we mentioned now that this is Sufyan, meaning Sufyan ibn Uyayna, and not Sufyan al-Sawri. Right. Babu ma yakulu rajulu idha tawadda'a. The chapter of that which a person should say when he makes wuzu. Right. Tawadda'a has three meanings here now. Arad al-wudu'a, he intends to make wuzu. شرع في الوضوء, he started to make wudu, فرغ عن الوضوء, he finished making wudu. And here, what is meant in this hadith here is when he finished making wudu, right? After completing wudu, the shahadatain, to recite the shahadatain, that is established in Sahih hadith, right? In Abu Dawood, Tirmizi, and in Sahih Muslim. And in Tirmizi also this hadith, Allahumma ja'alni min at-tawabin wa ja'alni min al-mutatahhirin, right? So this hadith is not in Abu Dawud and Muslim. However, this hadith is in Tirmizi, but there is a confusion in either the method or the narrators, right? Nevertheless, in Ma'arif al-Sunan it is mentioned, those azkar and du'as which are established from strong hadiths, they are 4, right? One is Bismillah walhamdulillah at the beginning of wudu. The other way you can read is Bismillah al-Azim walhamdulillah ala din al-Islam, right? The second is Allahumma ghfirli dambi wa wasi'li fi dari wa barik li fi rizqi. So there's just right. There's a second. The third one is the Shahadatain, which is mentioned here, right? And the fourth one, there's also a fourth one there. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika la ilaha illa anta wahdaka la sharika lak. Astaghfirukallahumma wa atubu ilaik. Narrated by Nasai. Right. When it comes now to those du'as, right, that you read when you wash that the lumps, it's different du'as you read when you wash different lumps, right? They say these riwayats are weak, right? But it's permissible to practice on it. Allama Tahawi, however, he says, instead of attributing these du'as to Nabi Karim Sallallahu, it is better to attribute it to the Salafi Salihin. You understand? Better to attribute it to Salafi Salihin. Right, let's see that. وفي قال حدثنا أحمد بن سعيد الهمداني وقال حدثنا ابن قال سمعت معاوية يعني ابن صالح يحدث عن أبي عثمان عن جبير بن نفير عن عقبة بن عامر قال كنا مع رسول الله قدام أنفسنا نتناوب رعاية إبلنا فكانت علي رعاية الإبل فروحت فروحتها بالعشي وأدركت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يخطب الناس فسمعت يقول ما منكم من أحد يتوضأ فيحسن الوضوء ثم يقوم فيركع ركعتين يقبل عليهما بقلبه ووجهه إلا فقد وجب أوجب أوجب right. فقلت بخ ما أجود هذه فقال رجل بين يدي التي قبلها يا عقبة أجود منها فنظرت فإذا هو عمر بن الخطاب قلت ما هي يا أبا حفص قال إنه قال آنفا قبل أن تجيء ما منكم من أحد يتوضأ فيحسن الوضوء ثم يقول حين يفرغ من وضوئه أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله إلا فتحت له أبواب الجنة 8 يدخل من أيها شاء. قال معاوية وحدثني ربيعة بن يزيد عن أبي إدريس عقبة بن عامر. Muawiyah ibn Salih, narrated from Abi Usman, from Jubair ibn Nufayr, from Uqba ibn Amir, right? So Uqba ibn Amir is the narrator, the Sahabiya, right? He said, we want Nabi Akram and we should make our own khidmat. We should take turns to see to the grazing of our camels, right? So it was my turn. It was upon me to graze the camels. So I brought them back in the evening. Then I got Nabi Akram when he was addressing the people. And I heard him saying that none of you will make wuzu, then he makes proper wuzu. Then he stands up and he recites 2 rakats. facing upon them with his heart in his face. In other words, he's got concentration. You understand? In the third regard, except that he has made Jannat wajib. So I said, Bakh, how wonderful is that? Right. So a man in front of me, which was before this here, said, Oh, Uqba, better than this I saw. Better than this I saw. Uh, Ya Uqba, ajwadu minha. Right. There's something better than this. There's something better than this. Then I looked, so it was Umar ibn al-Khattab. So I said, what is it? Oh, Aba Hafs. That's his title, right? That's title Umar ibn al-Khattab. So he said, indeed, he said, now, before you came, that none of you, right, who makes wuzu and he makes proper wuzu. Then he says, when he finishes from his wuzu, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan rasuluh, except that the 8 doors of Jannah will be open for him, and he can enter from whichever one he wishes. Muawiyah says, and Rabi ibn Yazid narrates to me from Abi Idris by Ibn Amir. Right. Right. What we get here now is, so from this hadith, what we learn is that the doors of Jannah are 8. Right. However, there are other hadiths which shows that the doors of Jannah are much more. So there's 2 answers from this, right? One is that we say here, min, min abwabil jannati samaniyati, from the 8 doors of Jannah, right? And the other answer is that you get 2 types of doors. One is the external doors and the internal doors. So the external doors are 8, and in the internal doors there are many, right? The ulama mentioned also the names of the 8 doors: Babul Iman, Babul Salat, Babul Siyam, which is also called Babul Rayyan, Babul Sadaqah, Babul Qadhimin al-Ghayz, right? Those who suppress the anger. Babul Radina, Babul Jihadi, Babul Tawbati. What it means is that those people who any of these amal are dominant in them, that they enter from that door, right? Right. This hadith. أبي قال حدثنا الحسين بن عيسى قال حدثنا عبد الله بن يزيد المقرئي أن حيرة بن شريح عن أبي عقيل بن عمي عن عقبة بن عامر الجهني عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم نحوه ولم يذكر أمر الرعاية قال عند قوله فأحسن الوضوء ثم نظر رفع النظر إلى السماء فقال وساق الحديث بمعنى حديث معاوية. Right. So from Hayward ibn Shurayh, from Abi Aqil, from the son of his uncle, from Uqba ibn Amr al-Juhani. Right. So it's the same Sahabi here. You understand it? Same Sahabi. What was it there? Written there? There's Uqba bin Amir. Right. Yeah, just got Juhani included. Right. From Nabi Akasam, similar to the previous hadith. He did not mention the matter of the grazing. He didn't have that in his hadith, right? And he said at the time of his statement, then he made wuzu. Then he raised his sight to the sky. And then he continued the hadith with the meaning of the hadith of Muawiyah. Right. So what we understand is that at the time of reciting Shahadatain, look towards a person should look towards the sky. Okay, leave it to this.